Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the CR Sports Podcast. Garrett, it's been a real long time now, but we've been busy with things. You've been busy with just winning other championships. I guess in baseball, you decided to make a return this year, and then you guys get the win yesterday. How'd that feel?
Yeah, it felt, really good taking down Greece Athena. A lot of respect for them as a team, though. Very good team. A lot of good players on that team. So it was a lot of fun, though, to win one in baseball after the team came up short the last couple of years. So it was
Yeah, we,
really,
we broadcasted the one last year that's on our YouTube channel that you're watching this from. That was when you lost a Fairport, or when they lost a Fairport. Then you join them, and
yeah,
I guess you were the missing piece.
I looked up during the game just to make sure you weren't up in the booth calling it up there. I didn't see you, but, it was a really fun game, and obviously you had a great tennis career at Victor. I know it didn't end quite the way you wanted to, but nothing to be it was a great career. You shouldn't hang your head on anything. A lot to be proud of. I know you guys made it far, at least in the doubles qualifiers. Almost were able to upset Fairport as well in the team sectionals. But it's almost summertime. Baseball is now in full swing. We're getting down to the grit and grind, the dog days of summer for baseball and the NBA playoffs. We're about to find out who's going to be in the NBA finals.
Oh yeah, thank you a lot, buddy. That means a lot to me, and it was a fun career playing varsity sports. It's something that if you have the opportunity to do, just do it. It's a great thing to anybody listening out there, and yeah, I'll never take those moments for granted. But another team that shouldn't take their moments for granted, the New York Knicks, a team that I followed very closely this year, more than I have in recent years. But this team, surrounded by Jalen Brunson and his MVP campaign that he went on to finish top five in MVP voting for this New York Knicks squad, he was phenomenal. The Knicks were phenomenal with what they had. They were an injured team. They were a decimated group. And they beat the Philadelphia 76ers to advance to the semifinals in the Eastern Conference. They ended up losing to the Indiana Pacers and Tyrese Halliburton, and it was just ended up being too much. The injuries, they couldn't overcome them. They lost in seven, and it ended with the Knicks being totally outplayed just because of the players that they had on the court. And Dante DiVincenzo left it all out there. Josh Hart left it all out there. DiVincenzo with 39 points in that game seven without Jalen Brunson for a quarter and a half in the second half. And without Julius Randle, without Bojan Bogdanovic, without Mitchell Robinson, the list goes on. With a hurt OG Anunoby, with a banged up Josh Hart, with a banged up Jalen Brunson, then a hurt Jalen Brunson. It was ridiculous. But what we saw from this team was a heart and hustle that I don't think you've seen in the NBA in quite some time. And it's a group led by Tom Thibodeau. And I think that everyone across the league just respects the way that the Knicks played basketball this year. And it's something that everyone's really happy about.
Yeah, being healthy is always, if not the main key, one of the main keys in, teams' title runs. You saw the Nuggets last year; they were able to stay mostly completely healthy for the most part. The Mavs and the Timberwolves now in the West. I know the Celtics had Kristaps Porzingis gone down, but kind of feels like it's the Celtics' year at least in the East, as they're sort of head and shoulders above everyone else. But even the Pacers now, once they got past the Knicks, now Tyrese Halliburton went down with the hamstring issue. He's now missed game 3, missing game 4 currently. If Indiana squeaks this one out, possibly going to be able to return later in the series. But same with Kristaps Porzingis. So injuries, they play a big role every year. We've seen the Clippers struggles with Kawhi Leonard constantly being hurt in the playoffs. He's not able to be there, and it's, can you really rely on Paul George and James Harden and Russell Westbrook to be healthy down the road in every playoff series? So that's what happens when you have these older teams. It's hard for everyone to stay healthy and do it for long portions of time. And if you look at the Celtics roster, it feels like that's going to be the biggest thing holding them back from winning a championship would be the injuries, because the depth is really the one thing that you look at the Celtics roster and say, all right, that's a problem.
Yeah, and as we're watching the conference finals now with the Celtics and the Pacers and the Mavs and the Timberwolves, this is game 4, and TJ McConnell's down right now. He just took a hard fall on the hard court in Indiana, and they're down 3-0. He gets up and walks it off. But injuries, it's been a physical playoffs. As you see on a play like that, a guy takes a fall. There's been a lot of fight from these NBA players that I don't think we've seen in recent years, and it's almost brought back that old school basketball feel to the 90s or whatever, but there's still, the officiating isn't there. But the hustle and just the competitive plays that have resulted in hard contact and injuries is something that I haven't seen in quite some time in these NBA playoffs. But it's been really fun to watch from a fan's perspective, I think. And yeah, Garrett, I think you hit the nail right on the head. there, injuries is a huge part of making a run in all sports and in the postseason. It's just something that you can't account for it. You can't estimate it. You don't know when it's going to happen to you, and it's a lot of luck that gets involved too. And that's what all great teams have to win a championship.
Yeah, and speaking of T.J. McConnell, a guy that's been absolutely balling out in the postseason, playing the
I know
best
you've liked them.
the
Yeah.
best ball of his career. He's a small point guard who doesn't even want to shoot threes, and he's averaging, 15 to 20 points a game in the playoffs. It's really fun to watch how he can just get to his spots. He plays with so much grit and grind and hustle, something that this Pacer team might lack at times. With, they are struggling on defense, but that's kind of how the roster was constructed. A team that probably, a lot of people definitely didn't have them in the Eastern Conference Finals. I think they sort of went past their ceiling, maybe even in the playoffs. Is you probably didn't see them winning 2 series, even 1. Obviously, Damian Lillard and
played a-
Giannis being out
Yeah.
definitely helped, but they showed that they can hang with the Celtics. I mean, the Bucks were injured, the Knicks were injured, but the Celtics,
They're not.
even without Kristaps Porzingis,
Besides him.
this is one of the best teams in the NBA, if not the best. And the Pacers are down 3-0, but they could very well be up 2-1 as they've sort of had a choke job in games 1 and 3. And then if you look at it from the Western Conference side, it's been Anthony Edwards sort of trying to make a statement and be the next Michael Jordan, if you will, of the league, or the next face of the league. And
We got a conversation about that later.
and recently, he's really struggled. In that Sun series, he was just so emotional, and he was putting up the point outputs and everything, but he's come back down to earth a little bit in the next 2 series. And the thing that amazes me the most about the Western Conference is how we thought, oh, this is going to be, the craziest playoffs ever. Seeds 1 through 8 could win it. There's been a lot of blowouts. Even in that Nuggets T-Wolves series, games 1 through 6 were all blowouts.
Eastern Conference has been a lot more tight.
Yeah, like games 1 through 6 were all blowouts. It's a 7-game series, but there's like one close game. And then the Nuggets blow a 20-point lead at home as the defending champ. So there's been a lot of sort of whack. And, who thought that the pickups of P.J. Washington and Daniel Gafford would have the Mavericks 1 win away from the NBA Finals?
Let's talk about the Mavericks first. One of the best backcourts in NBA history is what you've seen with the production of Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving seems like a new player. He's refound his identity on this basketball court.
And he's focused on basketball.
He's focused on basketball. Not only focused on basketball, he looks like a leader in that locker room. You see him in the post-game press conferences, and he's assertive with his answers. He says exactly what he does and his team needs to do for the future. And he's not even looking past things. In the past, he'd start wandering off or tailing off about some other subject. And right now, it's just all about basketball. It's all about the next game for the Mavs, and it's really worked out. And it's been, to the delight of Mark Cuban and the Mavericks. He's probably sitting back and going, "Oh my gosh, I was just getting Kyrie for the talent. I didn't think he could be this leader for us. This is the best thing I could have asked for." Because when you have a leader like that who's won championships before, it's really a big thing. And he really lost that character, I believe, during COVID and during his time with the Celtics and with the Nets. And it seems like now with the Mavericks, they've really caught fire in a bottle, and they're using it really well, because Luka Doncic is also an MVP candidate, and he is amazing at basketball. And then you talked about the pickups. P.J. Washington has been a great player for them. They've had, who I love is Lively. He's been a beast in his rookie season. So this is a team that's young with some veterans, and it's really just meshed so well. And I really see them, in my eyes, coming up out on top of the NBA when it's all said and done. I think they will beat the Celtics, assuming that both of these teams go on to advance. There's never been a team that's come back and won from 3-0 down, and both the Mavs and the Celtics are up 3-0. So we'll see if history can be made, but I believe it's going to be those two playing in the NBA Finals. And I think the Mavs have a slight leg up on the Celtics because of just how efficient this backcourt has been, thanks to the lead and leadership of Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, and the front office, I think, deserves more credit than anyone in this whole Mavericks organization with the way they've constructed their roster. I mean, Derek Lively wasn't really a top 10 pick, necessarily a lottery pick. He was a guy that they found later in the draft, and he's been so good for them in that role. And Daniel Gafford, Derek Jones Jr., Derek Lively, P.J. Washington, they're guys that know their roles. They know that Luka and Kyrie are going to take the majority of their shots, but they're fine with that. They're fine taking a back seat, and it's worked out. As on the other side, you see Anthony Edwards is struggling, and they said, well, what do you need to do to fix that? He said, I need to take more shots. So, it's the younger teams so far have sort of outlasted the older teams. As you saw, the Lakers and the Suns went home early. The Clippers went home early. You watch this Timberwolves defense, and they just have like all the energy in the world. It feels like they're all over the place. And the Mavs, Kyrie and Luka like to rest on defense sometimes, but the rest of that squad picks it up. And then the Pacers, they're constantly just running up and down. They can't really stop the Celtics at all, but they can sure score with them, which is why games have been close. I know they might not be in the series because it's 3-0. And then the Celtics, they have older guys in Porzingis and Horford, but Pritchard, Tatum, Brown, they're not that old, and they've been able to sustain it.
It's been a fun playoffs to watch. I've really enjoyed this postseason so far. But with Anthony Edwards, he was really the main storyline. And I think we should talk about this for a little bit. Everyone was drawing the parallels to Michael Jordan, and some people think that he's actually Michael Jordan's son. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe he takes a paternity test. But for what we know, it's not. He has a dad. I believe he may have passed away. So there's really very interesting characteristics though that both Edwards and Jordan share. Like when you watch them play, you watch the highlights of Michael Jordan, you kind of see a little bit of this young Anthony Edwards. If you look at the young Michael Jordan highlights, it's like, I know, but then you could say, oh, I also saw that with Kobe. Like Kobe played like the same way Jordan played, but they're different players. But it's really interesting to see Anthony Edwards at this young age be so dynamic and becoming the face of the league, and then just kind of disappearing so far in this Western Conference Finals. I don't know if this is a issue with how old he is. But he's been in the playoffs before. Maybe he just needs a couple more years. But I do think he has a very talented team, and they got a lot of pieces, especially with Gobert and Karl-Anthony Towns down there. I know Karl-Anthony Towns didn't play good last game. Didn't even make a three. His first time in a long time playing in the postseason, not making a three. But I think this team really has a lot of pieces. And Anthony Edwards, everything was clicking early, and I really do think he could still be the face of the league. But right now, it just looks like the Mavericks are running the West.
Yeah, and I think something you have to really consider is the job they've asked him to do on defense, switching him back and forth between Kyrie and Luka in that Nuggets series. They were able to put Jaden McDaniels on Jamal Murray, and so Anthony Edwards didn't have as much pressure on him on defense, and now he's having to exert a lot more effort trying to stay in front of Luka and Kyrie. I think it was in game 1 or 2 they tried to put him on Luka, and Luka just started cooking him, so they had to put him back on Kyrie. And that takes a lot out of you. It's hard to grind every possession on defense and still have the energy to be the best player on offense. And he's a guy who shows a lot of emotion. So you see all these highlights of him and you're like, oh, he must have had 40 last night. You look at the box score and he had 20. Like every bucket feels so much louder than it really is with him. But that's his characteristic. That's his personality.
He's fiery.
He owns up to it.
Yeah.
And it's helped the Timberwolves get to where they are in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch. And I don't know what you think, Garrett, but I think we can look forward into this Mavericks and Celtics finals. And I don't know what you see, but I already explained how I think that the Mavericks are the team that I would have as the favorite in that series, just based off of how they've played in this postseason, especially this most recent round. What do you see in your eyes?
Well, I kind of see a Celtics team that's underperforming. I don't think they're playing as well as they could be and they should be. Frankly, I just feel like they're sort of like, we're the best team in the East. It doesn't really matter. If we play our best, we're probably going to win these games anyway. So if the Celtics can take that next step up, and I think they will, I think they learned a lot from losing to the Warriors a couple of years ago in the finals about what it really takes once you get there. And I just think the Mavs are going to be a little too reliant on Luka and Kyrie and be lacking that third scorer that it's going to be enough for the Celtics to beat them. But I've been underestimating the Mavericks the whole playoffs. I wouldn't be surprised if they were crowned NBA champions.
I've been underestimating them too, and I think it stops now for me. I see them as this team with a young Derek Lively who's been sensational for them, getting offensive rebounds, getting defensive rebounds, and it's just been huge and fun to watch. And then Luka and Kyrie have been unstoppable, and this newfound Kyrie Irving that's got his head screwed on straight, I think that's something that they can really use to their advantage that no other team has at their side to use. He's a player with the utmost talent. He's got the best ball skills. He's a great dribbler, great ball handler. I don't really trust Jason Tatum, to be honest with you. We've seen him in big moments before. I don't really trust him. And Jaylen Brown, he can disappear at times. I see Lively really controlling the boards in a series against them. And I know Drew Holiday is a great defender, and that would be interesting with who they'd match him up with, Luca or Kyrie. But I see this Mavs team as just they're clicking on all cylinders, and I don't want to wait for a Celtics team that still hasn't gotten there yet when making my pick.
Yeah, and it's two interesting teams because I think they both have guys that they can go to in the playoffs who have been there before. You look at the Pacers and even the Timberwolves have sort of been blowing leads late in games. The Pacers don't really have that go-to guy. Halliburton's a really good player, but at times
He disappeared.
he struggles. He does disappear, and sometimes he lacks a little confidence, and he struggles to get to his spots. And it's hard to go to Siakam, down the stretch as well because he can't shoot the three ball that consistently. And then you look at the other side. If Anthony Edwards isn't making shots, the Timberwolves don't have another dynamic guard that they can go to. Whereas the Celtics say, all right, put it in Tatum's hands, put it in Jaylen Brown's hands, and the Mavs say, put it in Luka or Kyrie's hands and get out of the way and let them get a bucket. And you've seen that's been the difference in late game scenarios, which is why they both hold 3-0 leads.
Yeah, and when I think of this next series, I really think it would be like Mavs in 6 or 7. I don't see it going anything less than 6. Either way, if it was Celtics to win or the Mavs, I really see it going 6 or 7 deep. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I have the Celtics winning, so I would probably say Celtics in 6. But I agree with you that I think it's going to be a back and forth series. And the Mavericks are a team who have really, relied on their home crowd in the playoffs. The Celtics haven't lost on the road yet. So that would be, sort of an interesting matchup to look at. And the Celtics were great in the regular season at home. They have a couple losses at home in the playoffs. I mean, they haven't lost much in the playoffs. They won in 5 twice, and now they're up 3-0 looking to sweep. But the Mavericks at home, that crowd I think it's going to play a key factor.
Well, that's what we think about the NBA right now. We want to talk about some baseball?
Yeah, we got baseball. I guess we could start with sort of the sad, disheartening news that
Oh, yeah,
Ronald
Ronald.
Acuna tore his ACL again, second time in 4 years.
Yeah, it's
I
been a
think
little bit since he did.
Tore it because then they won the World Series that year, and then it's been 2 years since, and then he just tore his other one yesterday, which, if you watch the play, it was like a delayed steal attempt almost or something.
Non-contact injury. It's
yeah,
baseball. So.
I think it was the second non-contact one, not even like colliding in the outfield or anything. So we're really sad to see that because
Dynamic player.
it's bad for baseball too. He's one of the faces of the game. But otherwise, it's been the AL sort of outplaying the NL early on in the season. The Guardians won 9 in a row. Not sure if they won today or not. The Yankees have been on fire. The Orioles also up there in the chase for the AL pennant, and it's been sort of the Dodgers a little disappointing for all the construction of their roster in the offseason. And
They've still, but the NL West hasn't been that good, so it's okay.
yeah, and then the Phillies are actually the best team in the NL, who the last couple seasons a lot of success in the playoffs. So they're probably going to give the Dodgers and the Braves a run for their money, but it looks like a 3-horse race in the NL.
Yeah, the National League has been run by the Phillies so far this season. They have been just really good. They just continue to rake, and they got great pitching as well.
The Diamondbacks have been really underperforming. I know they were
Yeah.
the 6th seed in the playoffs last year, but under 500 at this point in the season.
Yeah, the NL West has been underperforming. I mean, the Padres have been bad, and they've been mediocre, I guess you could say. And the Dodgers, they're at the top of the division because their division's not that good. But if they were in the AL East, they'd have a lot of trouble right now with the Yankees and the Orioles. Orioles only a game and a half back on the Yankees. The Juan Soto trade really worked out for the Yankees. You got 2 AL MVP contenders right now with the way Aaron Judge has been playing as of the past month and the way Juan Soto's been playing the whole entire season. They've both been beasts, and it's Judge and Gunnar Henderson of the Orioles tied at the top of Major League Baseball. I think with Kyle Tucker as well for
17,
the most home runs in Major League Baseball with 17.
Yeah, it's been exciting to watch. The young talent the Orioles have been bringing up for it feels like forever.
It's finally panned
bloom,
out.
and Aaron Judge was really struggling, but the last couple weeks he certainly came on.
It's been, I'd say, a month at this point.
That average is getting up close to 300. He was, struggling to get
Batting-
over 200.
Batting 170, 180s.
So that's obviously a good sign if you're a Yankees fan. And Luis Gil has been a big bright spot for the Yankees as well. Someone
My
who,
man, Luis Heel, Garrett. Pronounce it.
Gil.
No G. They say the G is like an H. Luis Heel has been an absolute flamethrower on the mound. He's been a beast for the Yankees. The lowest ERA. All Yankee starting pitching has an ERA under 3 besides Nestor Cortez with I think a 3.3 or so, low threes.
which
It's
is
been great. Marcus Stroman's been a great addition for them, and Garrett Cole hasn't even pitched a single pitch this year. He's looking to come back in the next month of June, and I don't know. This has been surprising, I think, for a lot of Yankees fans. Carlos Rodon has returned to the form that they saw him as, like when they gave him that big monster deal coming from the Giants. And there's a lot of bright spots on this Yankees squad now with Juan Soto. He's just brought this professional style of hitting to their team that you haven't really seen in recent years, where he just doesn't strike out a lot. He gets walks, he hits home runs, he gets base hits, he goes the other way. He does everything. He does everything that you could possibly want.
Yeah, and that's certainly going to help when you have a guy like Judge in the 2 or 3 spot, just someone who can get on base in front of him, so those solo home runs can turn into 2 or 3
And it has.
run home runs. And Volpe's been really good. I think he's in the leadoff spot now.
Yeah, he is.
So you saw the AL East last year. It was the Orioles and Rays neck and neck for, almost the whole year until the Orioles finally pulled away with a couple games left. And it feels like it's going to be the same thing.
Blue Jays have been bad.
The Blue Jays have been bad. The Red Sox now a game under 500, and the Rays sort of feel like they're finally playing to the talent they have on their team. Feels like every year they sort of overperform.
Yeah.
And the Blue Jays, something about their roster the last couple of years, it feels like it's been loaded, but they haven't done anything. They haven't gone anywhere. And then now this year, doesn't even look like they're going to make the playoffs.
And when you look at Boston, they've been disappointing, but not really. They didn't spend any money. What did they do this offseason? Nothing. They just lost pieces. That was it.
Yeah, I don't think Boston's been disappointing. I sort of expected them to be right around where they are. Cutter
Yeah,
Crawford
it's
has been
disappointing
amazing.
for fans, but like they just didn't spend money. They didn't try to make a push for it.
They didn't feel like the front office thought this was going to be their year by any means, but
It's been a shift though with the Red Sox. In recent years, their management they always would have done something in the offseason. They've almost converted to a small market team when they have all this billions of dollars just sitting in the back pocket. But that's what they've decided to do, and this different approach. I guess you could say the same as with the Mets this year. They didn't do much in the offseason. They're going all in on 2025. I think it's interesting with what the Mets are doing. And Edwin Diaz, his return this year has been really bad. He's been a terrible closer for them.
yeah, he has. He's even possibly taking another role outside of the bullpen, and that division's one of, if not the best in the MLB. I'd say the AL East probably is a little better, but
Especially with Acuna going
the Phillies and Braves are definitely going to be up there. I know the Marlins have been slacking way off, but the Nationals have looked more promising this year. They're hanging around a couple games below 500. C.J. Abrams. The Pirates, the story is mainly Paul Skeens and how dominant he's been really since making his MLB debut. I think it's been 3 or 4 starts now. His ERA, I think, is under 2. He's been amazing. You saw he had, I think, a 7-strike outing, no hits in 6 innings pitched. So he's really been good. And sort of the drama with the top of the division, Craig Counsell leaving the Brewers to go to the Cubs.
gets booed.
He gets his first time back in Milwaukee
Revenge,
today,
I
and
guess. I don't know. Or not. He doesn't get his revenge, but
it
the fans
wasn't
get their revenge.
You could say the Brewers did with their win today against the Cubs. So I'll let you take it from here.
I want to talk about Paul Skeens. He's this top prospect in the MLB. He's a great pitcher so far in the majors. He's lived up to expectations. He's winning not only on the field but off the field as well. He's got a girlfriend who's the highest paid NIL player of all time, as in Livy Dunn, and he's just this cool dude. He's got the mustache. He's got this iconic look. Kind of looks older than he actually is. He looks like a veteran even though he's a rookie. It doesn't make sense. You try to add it all up, but the Pirates got a guy. And I think the real thing we should look at here is, Garrett, we had conversations last year, and if you listened, you can remember this too. When we were talking about Shohei Ohtani on the Los Angeles Angels, or the Anaheim Angels, whatever way you'd like to refer to them. They play in Anaheim. They're the Los Angeles Angels. When he was on them, and we had the debate of should you trade Ohtani or should you wait until the offseason? Should you not? Well, it ended up being, I think we both agreed, or I at least said, they should trade Ohtani because they didn't re-sign him. The Dodgers have him now, and they didn't get anything for him. Paul Skeens is at the Pittsburgh Pirates, a team that has notoriously not spent any money in recent memory on a big name player or superstar. If you're the Pittsburgh Pirates, are you going to pay this guy when it's time? I think you have to. You have to keep your fans engaged. And it's just how many years can it go on with just not signing a big guy? And one of your homegrown players, you have to keep your homegrown players that are superstars. And Paul Skeens looks like he's all of that for the Pirates. And they got to spend money eventually. And I think, he'd be the perfect guy to spend it on.
Yeah,
I don't know what you think.
I mean, when you're a small market team like in Pittsburgh with the Pirates, you can't afford to go out and spend, the big bucks every other offseason. You kind of have to wait. You have to hit it good in the draft, and you have to wait till all these guys make it up, which is sort of an underrated thing about Paul Skeens is how fast the dude made it to the major leagues. He just dominated every minor league level, and he's even dominated the majors once he made it.
which doesn't happen a lot.
No, usually, even the number one prospects, it takes more than 1 year, usually a couple of years. But back to what I was saying is when you got a guy like this and a team like this, that's when you have to spend the money. You realize you can't spend it every offseason. You can't extend every young player that you have that you want to. But when you get a couple guys, or in this case, a guy like Paul Skeens, you got to keep the fans happy and you got to spend the money, even if it means 4 or 5 years down the road, your team might pay.
Yeah, it's the same thing with all those small market teams across Major League Baseball that have decided to not spend money on their homegrown guys and guys that they've had for long periods of time. I know Otani isn't homegrown because he came from overseas, but it's just like if you got a superstar that the fans love and that everyone's super excited for, you can't let him walk and you can't let him go to one of those big name teams. And just let's name them: the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Red Sox. I guess the Mets now with Steve Cohen. You can't let that happen. You got to keep them.
Rangers are in the game, is not.
The Rangers now, the Cubs, I guess. You can't let them go to one of those big money teams. And I think the overall arcing theme here is, should there be a salary cap in the MLB? And I think the resounding answer is yes from all parties. The players are the ones that don't really want it because they want to get
Owners
paid
don't
more
want
money.
it.
Well, the owners don't want. Some owners don't want it that want to spend more money, and some owners don't want it who want to spend less money. Because then, when you have a salary cap, there's a floor, so you have to at least spend a certain amount of money, and that would make the competition better because it would make the small market teams like the Pittsburgh Pirates, like the Miami Marlins, that like the Tampa Bay Rays, spend more. The Rays have been fine, but then they'd have to spend more money at this floor, and then the competition would get tighter, and not all superstars would just go to one of the 6 teams with a ton of money in Major League Baseball.
I
But
mean,
some of the players, they don't want it because their argument always was, well, we get paid more money than other leagues, and that's not the case anymore. The NFL is king with money. The NBA is
the
king
NBA is king.
with money, and they both have the NFL has salary cap, so it's fine. Like, what's the issue now? I don't know what the holdup is.
Yeah, it goes back to the movie Moneyball and just the whole process. I mean, the A's rumors of them moving to Vegas. I don't know if that's. I think there's been talks. They're trying to get a new stadium built there. I think they might, but
One
then
day yes, one day no.
they're gonna have to play in like some other places. I don't think they can play in the Coliseum anymore. They're not gonna be competitive when they're in Oakland. The Orioles are every day. It feels like I see a Twitter post that says extend Adley. They should extend Adley, but they don't have. They have the money for it, but if they pay him, then they can't pay some of these other guys, and it's why I know the Dodgers haven't had the playoff success, but they've won their division 10 out of the last 11 years. It's why the Yankees have 27 World Series. It's why all these iconic moments in the playoffs are with the Yankees and the Red Sox. You're not like, oh, remember that one time, the Kansas City Royals and the Minnesota Twins. They've just been so dominant for so long.
2015 for the Royals. They've won a World Series more recent than the Yankees have.
They've won ones, but you're not like, oh, this.
It's not this period
The
of time.
Miami Marlins have had sustained success for 30 years. It's,
Right.
They get good for 1 or 2 years, then they have to suck for 8 years to get good again.
It's like the A's cycle of making the wild card. They'll to give them 4 or 5 years, a couple 3 years. I don't know, 3 years on a good cycle. Oh, they'll make the wild card and then just lose. But that's like what happens with these teams. They have good players. They have Matt Olson. Where's he now? He's with the Atlanta Braves. Do they have money? Yes, they do. Like, that's just what's happened, and I think a salary cap would solve a lot of these issues.
Yeah, and I know we're not, big into golf on this podcast really, but I think we should mention Scotty Scheffler getting thrown into jail on his way to the golf course and
Valhalla.
proceeding to shoot. I think it was a 3-under on the day. Then the next day he loses, doesn't even have his caddy with him because his caddy had to be at someone's graduation, and he shoots the worst that day, but still finishes, I think, top 15. The dude is just a golfer. He can put up low scores whether he starts the day on the driving range or in a jail cell.
Yeah, and congrats to Xander Schauffele for winning the PGA Championship, where it was at Oak Hill, just up the road here in Rochester last year. I wish it was there.
Finally, an exciting finish that we had with Schauffele burying that putt on 18.
Yeah, and then Bryson watching to see if there was going to be a playoff. Everyone wanted there to be a playoff because you know what the fun thing is about golf, and if I ever get the opportunity to broadcast it one day, I'd be very proud because it's almost like everyone's rooting for everyone. It's not like you have unless there's like a personal thing you don't like somebody about, but that's not the case for me right now. I don't know if there's anybody that doesn't like somebody specifically on the tour. I don't know everything about golf, but all I know is that whenever I watch golf, these big or major tournaments, I'm just like rooting for there to be a great shot and them to sink it, or there to in a big moment to like there be excitement. And in a lot of other sports, there's hating that gets that goes on. I guess that could only happen in golf if you're betting on some other guy and you're just rooting for against somebody else. But it seems like everybody is always just rooting for the players, and that's something that's really fun to watch, especially on a broadcast.
Yeah, well, I think it's, I think there's certainly people who have their favorites and dislike other guys, but there's so many guys on tour that, come and go that it's hard to, have this insane hatred towards 15 tour players, Maybe you don't like this one guy because of what he did one time, but it seems like whenever, I turn it on a Sunday to watch a major, I'm like, how can these guys finish tied so we can get a playoff, so we can get more golf, and sometimes that means I'm cheering for some guy to put it in the water on 18, and sometimes I'm cheering for him to make a 40-footer. It really depends. Golf sort of, feels like one of those guys where you can have multiple favorite teams, if you will. If you just have one guy, sometimes it's hard. He might be on a cold streak and he doesn't make the cut, and now you don't have anyone to cheer for on Saturday or Sunday. So you sort of pick up other guys along the way, and you sort of have rooting interest, whether it's they're from your home country or you just like the way they swing the golf club. It's a unique sport. It's different from the way you would root for an MLB or an NFL or an NBA team.
Yeah, and then as we're talking right now, we were talking about basketball earlier. It's important to note that the Celtics are not going to create history with blowing a 3-0 lead. They have swept the Indiana Pacers, and they're going to the NBA Finals. So that's going to be probably against the Dallas Mavericks, but they got a sweep, and that's very impressive with what they've done. And, we'll see what they can do. I think we should also note that the Stanley Cup playoffs are going on in the National Hockey League, and the Eastern Conference Finals between the Florida Panthers and the New York Rangers has just been a delight. The past two games have gone to overtime, and the Rangers have won both of them to cement a 2-1 series lead. And those games have been super close. I know we don't know a ton about hockey, Garrett, but Igor Shesterkin for the Rangers in net, he has been a phenomenal goalie. He's proven why he's the best goalie left in the playoffs, best goalie in the NHL, and he's been amazing for them. And Barclay Goodrow also just had two unbelievable goals the other night. It was watching the highlights. I'm like, I don't know how you do this. I'm not a hockey person, but it was super impressive just with outside the box look and looking down on things to see him do that. So they've been fun to watch.
Yeah, and it's really cool to see, Connor McDavid and Draisaitl sort of get their chance later in the playoffs as, Edmonton's now in the conference finals. It's kind of funny that, a team from, I think they're the northernmost team in Canada, is playing a team from Dallas, Texas.
Yeah.
In hockey.
And same with New York and Florida.
It does kind of feel a little odd, But we haven't had a Canadian team win it in a while, so it would be sort of cool and interesting to see Edmonton win it. But I think all four of these teams are pretty evenly matched, and it's going to make for an exciting conference finals and then an exciting Stanley Cup.
Yeah, and that's what anyone can just root for, and that's what we're rooting for the NBA as well. It'll be interesting to see. We covered a lot on this episode, and there's anything else you want to point out?
Yeah, we're going to try to be more consistent as we move into the summer, maybe.
We talked about it with, school's ending, we're graduating high school. You're going on to play basketball at Connecticut College, like we've gone over at that. It's going to be a good time. And
you're going to Syracuse at the Newhouse School.
I am going to Syracuse at the Newhouse School. I'm very excited for that opportunity. I've been a fan my whole entire life, and now I get to walk the halls of once Mike Tirico and Bob Costas, and many, many more. Marv Albert as well, who's the voice of the NBA for many decades. But it's been a great episode, Garrett. I'm glad that we're back, and we're celebrating Memorial Day weekend this weekend, and I got my Marine shirt on in honor of just all the people that have served and lost their lives in duty for this Memorial Day, and it's a great weekend holiday as always. It's one of my favorites. I feel like it's always a great one. It's a 3-day weekend. We got a 4-day weekend. There was a senior skip day. I was playing some tennis on Friday. And, here comes the summer, and here comes more CR Sports podcast episodes.
Yeah, possibly, maybe not the real start to summer, but it almost feels like it when you get that first Memorial Day, although the weather wasn't too hot today. You know, we got to mention our sponsorship with Molly V's.
Molly V's ice cream.
Homemade ice cream right in the town of Victor. Boy, it just feels like they're getting bigger and bigger every day. That is a
We've been
that is
doing
an
some talking
oncoming
behind the
brand.
scenes. They got a lot of stuff going on, a lot more stuff coming for everybody. The food truck, it'll be out. Their storefront down in downtown Victor, and we couldn't be more happy to partner with a better company.
Yeah, and if you're in town or you live around town, you know, definitely stop in and don't be shy. Keep coming back.
Stop in and also say where you came from. You could say your friends at the CR Sports Podcast. And yeah, we've had a great episode. We're glad to be back. Season 6, Episode 2 is officially over, right, Garrett?
Yep.
All right. So long, everybody, and stay tuned with more episodes coming out very shortly.